snow, and whether you got 1 or 5 inches of snow. It was untraditional. It was unlike things that we're most accustomed to here in Athens and things that are going on. We get snow maybe once a year or once every 4 or 5 years. And it seems that though you have spent a lifetime to get to know Kris, I only had the pleasure to get to know him in the last week. People ask me, well, how do you get to know someone after they're gone, or after they have passed this life, or have they went on over to the other side? And I said, well, through their people, through their friends, through their family, through their loved ones, through Claire, his mother, and of course through Will. And each and every one of you have made a tremendous impact in his family and his loved ones, as though Kris has. Do not be mistaken. We're not here to not only to mourn a life, but to celebrate a legacy that Kris has left on each and every one of you. Yes, it is hard. Yes, it is difficult. But the time that he's left here was a blessed time. It's impossible for us to understand. As the book of Isaiah tells us that God's ways are not our ways, and our ways are not his ways. And it's impossible to understand how God can take a life so blessed and so wonderful and so awesome to all those people that he knows, and to take him so early. I myself was only 33 years old, and I were lying awake many hours this past week and praying and seeking and say, Lord, what should I say? What I tell you, I recognize as a minister, as a person that is paid, that nothing I will say this day or this hour is going to change the way you feel about Kris. Nothing I can do can impact Kris at all. He's already made his place. He is where he is today. I asked several people in the family and friends, and I asked Claire, I said, I would like to get to know this man called Kris. I like to know who he is, what he's about, and who he is. I want to get before the people that he loved, the people that he understood, and I want to have the opportunity to truly feel something they feel. It's impossible to know what the grief that you're sharing or the pain that's in your heart and your soul. I understand nothing I say this morning is going to lessen your loss or anything that you feel in your heart. But as I read each and every one of the emails that you shared, I want to thank you for how I know it was difficult to share memories and times. And I felt myself chuckling a little bit when I read stories of Kris surfing on his top of Mitsubishi, or playing instruments in the high school band, or comforting a friend, or being one for another. It seemed the common thread between each and every person that I read said that no matter what happened in Kris's life, he made people smile. He made people laugh. He didn't really concern about his own being, but he was more concerned about his fellow friend, his fellow family. I was telling people as we walked into this service this morning or this afternoon that everyone knows this. We've been in Athens, know this used to be the old Firestone building. As a high appropriate, what I know about Kris is that he was the most traditional, non-traditionalist I ever found out in my whole life. He held on to his family values and he instilled his love that his family taught him. Each and every story that I heard showed me that he cared about who he was, but he did it in a different manner, in a different way. I look out here, and I'm not here to preach to you or change your mind, but I'm here to celebrate with you, sort of throw a party in, and thank God for the presence that he allowed us to share with Kris. I've read stories of how no matter how he felt, no matter what he was going through, he was concerned about you. Each one of you knew that he passed on from having leukemia. At 33 years old, that it must be such a difficult thing to lose someone loved. You know that he has a young child, Will, and his young wife, Claire, who has been so steady by his side. And I asked Claire, I said, share something that I can share with people that would mean something. And she told me a story of Kris organizing a bone marrow drive for a young boy who was suffering, who was sick. And I thought how unselfish that he was looking for someone to donate something for someone else's illness that they may live, and not so concerned about his present state or his present mind or the present thing that he was going through. A little bit later in the service, I want to give you the opportunity to share stories that you may have. As I understood that he was a comedian not by profession, but by choice. He liked to laugh, he liked to cut up, he liked to be one. So one person suggested that him and his wife should go on the road as a comedy team, and it just made me laugh. And everyone said Kris was always there for each other. I bet each one of you can remember a story. I see smiles on your faces and glares in your eyes. And though you're sad, you're probably thinking of one instance or one moment or one time in your life where Kris made you smile or laugh or just cut up. Everyone had a kind word. Everyone had something great to say about Kris. Kris seemed like an awesome person. If I had my choice today, I would be sitting at Starbucks at the coffee table having a cup of coffee with Kris to say, I want to know more about this person, about who he is and what he meant to this community, to the person he is. Each one of you probably can share a detail that is unknown to myself or to anyone in this room. I tell you, what a blessed time. 33 years is not a long time, but it was long enough for him to make his mark, to share his life, to share his stories, to make his life. Though going forward, it's going to be difficult for us to think of a day or an hour. Up to this point, I'm sure Claire's been planning and dealing and trying to do things to get ready for today. But times will go by, the family go home, and friends quit calling as much as they usually do. And she's going to have time to sit around and think about all the good times and the bad times. I'm one to believe that the bad times are just as important as the good times, because you can't celebrate the good times as well unless you know what the valleys are like, what the bad times are. I was praying, I said, Lord, I don't want to preach a sermon of condemnation, but of celebration. And one person said in their email that I believe that Kris did not die. I believe Kris just passed on to a different location, a different destination. And I truly believe that myself. And I found a few scriptures I'd like to read to you this afternoon that I thought emphasized that the most. This is what I feel led to share with you this evening. It says, this comes from 1 Thessalonians, the 4th chapter. It says, but I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep, that you sorrow not, even as others which have no hope. But if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so them also which sleep in Jesus will God bring with him. For this we say unto you by the word of the Lord, that we which are alive and remain unto the coming of the Lord shall not prevent them which are asleep. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, and the voice of the archangel with the trump of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together, and them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. So shall we ever be with the Lord. Wherefore comfort one another with these words. I like what it says, is comfort one another with these words. The memory of Kris has to be shared, has to be lived. Claire needs help telling Will who his father was, explaining how he was, how it is to be who he was. I know that it's difficult at this time to sit here and say, I just can't let him go. It's too early. It's too early. It's just too much time. It's just, I didn't have enough time. I didn't have enough days. I didn't say all the words that I was supposed to. And I want to ask you, at what age is the appropriate time? Is it a young child who's just been born? Is it a teenager who died in a car wreck? Or a young adult from a disease? Or an older person who's wise in age? We're never ready in the flesh to let someone go. In the body, we want more time, we want more days, we want more opportunities. And the Lord only allows us to have the days that we're allowed. And Kris's are allowed. Your legacy of Kris will go on forever. This afternoon, I want to challenge you. Let's celebrate the things that Kris accomplished. From through his wife, through his son, through his laughter, through his stories. This is your time. This is your day. This is your opportunity to mourn the loss. Ecclesiastes says it best, in all things there are a season. A time to mourn, a time to laugh, a time to smile, a time to be sad. Kris' legacy lives on with each and every one of you. The way he celebrated with each and every person. The way he played instruments, the way he sung songs, the way he started bands. I thought it was awesome the way that nobody who's met him or talked to me this past week always said, when you engage with Kris, you fell in love for a lifetime. He was the kind of person you would sit down, have a conversation with, and one guy said, it felt like I was going to be his friend until I was 70 years old, and we'd be like grumpy old men. He said we just sit around and laugh and cut up this person that would engage and talk and be the same person. Why? I can't tell you why. I just know that for all things there are a reason, and a season, and a time. It's hard. It's heartbreaking. It's devastating. But the Lord has reasons and things that we do not understand. And in due time, it'll all make sense. Your responsibility for going forward is keeping hope alive through Kris's memory and his legacy. I want to tell you how much that it's a testimony of the kind of person he is. I do funerals. I do morning services. And sometimes you only have 6 or 8 or 10 people who show up. I look out, and the church is almost full today. Lots of people came. Snow didn't stop you. Rain didn't stop you. Wind didn't stop you. Cold didn't stop you. Nothing would have stopped you. Because you know, Kris, nothing would have stopped him. Last thing I want to share with you before I want to give you the opportunity to come up and speak is that one gentleman shared with me, and I didn't understand it. I said, I'm not sharing that. That seems kind of weird. But I thought about it. The more I know about Kris, the more it seemed like he was weird. I mean, but who am I to define normal? I'm not normal. You're not normal. And we're all weird to somebody. Thank you, Kris. I made you laugh. Kris would have made you laugh. One gentleman said, Kris would look down upon us today and laugh at how sad we are.